The Occupy movement is now flexing its legal muscle, demanding the ouster of UC Davis Chancellor Linda Capt after new allegations that the university was alerted to allegations of police brutality 3 years ago. Well, in New York, protesters are demanding the Bloomberg administration return thousands of confiscated books. In our third story in the countdown, a former UC Davis police officer reveals he filed a complaint in 2008 against the very officer responsible for pepper spraying students there last week.
Specifically, allegations of excessive force, which I reported to the university and to its attorneys, and it appears nothing was done about that.
Meanwhile, students are ratcheting up their demands that Chancellor Linda Capt resign.
Chancellor Capt, I have with me in physical form the petition for your resignation. There are 80,000 signatures. Do you acknowledge or accept this petition?
I acknowledge the petition. Of course, since you have the signatures, it's there.
Capt also announced the university will cover the medical bills of those pepper sprayed, and she's asking the charges against the arrested students be dropped. Meanwhile, a lawyer for Occupy Los Angeles said today that the city plans to evict campers there as early as Monday. In New York, protesters who were already evicted today demanded police return books confiscated in the Zuccotti Park raid. The so-called People's Library included Shakespeare, Maya Angelou, even Mayor Bloomberg's biography.
Today, we are here to question the appropriateness and legality of the confiscation of approximately 4,000 books.
What was going on here was the creation of a community through conversation and the sharing of ideas. And what happened, what you see sitting right here in front of you, is an affront to me, not only as a student, but as an American.
Another courageous American calling on the Bloomberg administration to allow occupiers to peacefully protest is our next guest, former Philadelphia Police Captain Ray Lewis and current Occupy Wall Street member. Lewis was arrested last week, but says he remains undeterred, vowing to stay for as long as it takes to create real change in this country. Joining us here in the studio is retired Police Captain Ray Lewis. And Captain Lewis, thanks so much for your time tonight.
Thanks for your contribution to the movement.
I want to ask you, what made you decide to take part in these protests?
Okay, before I do that, I want to apologize to all the occupiers for not being there yesterday and today, as I have been interviewed by TV stations and radio, which I thought is going to help get the message out more than me being at the site of Zuccotti Park, but I will be there tomorrow for Thanksgiving.
And what is the message that drew you to the protest?
The suffering. The suffering that these people were willing to endure, not for their own benefit, but for social justice for everyone.
A lot of people see that iconic image of you being hauled away in your police uniform, and it strikes them that it really sort of strikes a chord. What is it about your background as a police officer that made you particularly sympathize with this movement?
I saw a tremendous amount of suffering. 19 of my years was spent in the most economically depressed areas of Philadelphia, and I saw unimaginable suffering.
What was your response to the UC Davis pepper spraying incident? Have you had a chance to see the pepper spray photos? What did you think when you first heard about it and saw those images from UC Davis?
Disbelief, outrage. This man is a sociopath. He should not only lose his job, he should be charged for assault and tried. And I don't think this man, perhaps this man doesn't even belong in society.
And when you see that he's wearing a police uniform, and you wore the uniform for so many years, what goes through your mind?
Well, there's always going to be some bad apples in any profession. But with law enforcement, it's one of the most important professions to reduce greatly the number of bad apples.
In your view, you served in Philadelphia, but Mayor Bloomberg here in New York, is he misusing the police force, and if so, how?
I have criticized the destruction of Zuccotti Park, and the criticism is solely directed toward Mayor Bloomberg. He is the one that set the order out to do that. Before this happened, there were strategic meetings, numerous, with Mayor Bloomberg, his top officials, top law enforcement officials, and even the sanitation officials. Everybody was involved, and every angle was covered. And at the end of it, he put his stamp on it. He is responsible. And then he tries to come out with the fact that I'm responsible, it's the macho authoritarian image. Well, what's he going to say? I'm not responsible. I had nothing to do with it.
As far as the raid itself, a lot of the apparently thousands of books that were at the People's Library at Zuccotti Park, those are now missing. The police, the administration, the city administration cannot account for what happened to them. There are some allegations that they were simply thrown away. Is that standard procedure when a raid is conducted, to simply throw books away?
No, that was conducted that way again because of the mayor. The standard of conduct here is if it's not an illegal weapon, if it's not stolen property, if it's personal property that people have a right to own and maintain, you have to give the person a property receipt. There's a number on that. They get a copy. The other copy gets put around the property. It's taken away, and at a later date they can get it back.
What have the conversations been like between you and other police officers, particularly those who were arresting you?
There was... Well, it was basically silence, but one officer did say that on the sly that I had the testicles of an elephant.
Mm-hmm. And do you get this, and tell me the reaction of the Occupy Wall Street activists when they see here's a former police officer joining their ranks?
Well, at first, and I fully expected this. It was like, is this a reverse psychology type of thing, that he's not the scraggly-looking guy trying to infiltrate. So maybe now they're going to use this guy, but he's still working for the police. So it took a while. And I never asked to join any meeting. I showed up anonymously. I took my raincoat off. I was there. I held my sign. And then I left. I never asked to participate. Just recently, I was asked to participate in the first, quote, General Assembly meeting that they have.
Take me again back to your arrest, what you were doing, what happened, how they handled you, what the circumstances were.
It was a perfectly legal arrest. I committed civil disobedience by sitting in the street and refusing to move. The conduct of the police in arresting me and all the protesters I saw that were arrested was exemplary. And I will say, though, the moment that I was walking across that intersection was the proudest moment of my life.
How so?
Because I thought I was doing the greatest thing I've ever done. And I've had many academic achievements recognized, professional achievements, but I considered that to be the most important thing I ever did.
And it sounds like you don't have a problem with police arresting people who commit peaceful acts of civil disobedience walking in the middle of the street. Your main issue, though, is when they're going through and tearing down Zuccotti Park, or when they're mishandling people in the course of those arrests. That's where things have gotten so out of control.
Yes, and it's not the blue shirts that's responsible for that. One thing I was amazed at in seeing all the pictures was the amount of white shirts. White shirts are the supervisors. The blue shirts are the frontline fighters. White shirts are there to supervise, and they have got to stand in the back. They can't be having the urine thrown on them, the rocks and bottles thrown on them. They have to have the clear mind. And if they're not enduring that type of abuse, they can maintain a clear mind. And that way they can look and see what's going on that shouldn't be going on, and then step forward with a clear mind to stop it. When you're involved with the arrests and the fighting, who's supervising?
Retired police captain from Philadelphia, Ray Lewis, who now lives in upstate New York. Captain Lewis, thanks so much for coming on. We appreciate you joining us and salute your courage.
Again, thank you for helping the movement.
You're welcome.